excited to
Hello.
be here. Hope you're
Hello.
enjoying Max, having fun. We are going to be taking some first looks at 3D. So hopefully you tuned into the keynote. Maybe you've even seen some labs and sessions. My name is Jeanette Mathews. I'm a product manager in Substance 3D at the 3D and Immersive organization here at Adobe. And I'm going to be talking about Stager today. And I'm here with Wes, my very good friend and colleague.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. Hey, everybody. My name is Wes McDermott. I work with the 3D and I division as well. I'm a creative producer with the art and development team. So, yeah, it's going to be awesome, Jeanette, hanging out with you here again today. We were together at the keynote, and so I'm excited just to, chill, look at some 3D stuff.
Let's do it. Wes is going to start by blowing us away again with some Substance Painter magic, and we're going to work on this little art bot project. Then I'm going to take him into Stager. We're going to build a little home for him. It's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe you can start with a start. Maybe you can start with a little background on this project. Where did the concept for him come from?
Yeah, great. So thanks, Jeanette. Okay, so we've got what you're seeing here is Substance Painter. This is like my 3D view. And what's really great about this is, I can go in, I can look at this object here in real time, move around and paint directly on it, as we'll see. Now, as you said, Jeanette, this object here was created internally by our art and development team. So my two colleagues, really great friends. So we have Giovanni Nakpil, as well as Geoffrey Rosen, who worked on the actual overall concept of this. So Giovanni worked on modeling of the robot, and we had Geoffrey who helped work on rendering and texturing as well. And so what's really cool about this robot guy, and we can see here, let's just take a look at him. You can see that this guy was actually modeled using our Medium software. So it's a VR solution for modeling in VR. It's basically kind of the precursor to what we are building. And I guess we'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk about the ecosystem, our Substance 3D modeling tool. So Geo was able to create this. We then brought it into Maya, did some retopology, created some UVs, and then we brought it here into Painter where we started creating textures.
Awesome. Yeah. Can't wait to tell you guys more about Modeler. Right now, it's in a private beta. But one of the exciting things I think right now about Adobe is that we're building an entire ecosystem of applications and content that will really empower you to work in new and exciting ways. Modeler is going to be really fun. Can't wait to show more. But right now, it is in private beta. So we're going to move on into the texturing space. So let's talk a little bit about this concept for this robot. What is he like? What's his deal? What's his life story, Wes?
Well, that's part of the fun of creating 3D stuff is, you got to come up with a, kind of a character concept of what the robot is. So he's gone through a couple different names. His first name, we called him Artie. But then we found out there was actually an Artie robot. So we kind of had to change it. So now you'll see his name is Artemis. We were trying to do just like kind of a funny, cheesy play on, like he's an art bot. But technically, as you can see, he's a little fun robot. He has like his paintbrush, his palette. He's painting, obviously. He has a little display here, which he kind of displays what he's going to be painting. So he's kind of like this little toy. We're still going to do a lot more stuff. So be sure to keep checking our Substance magazine. We have another really cool scene with Artie. We still call him Artie internally, that we want to do a little bit later on this year as well.
Awesome. Why don't you show us how you bring them to life, some of the texturing stuff?
All right, yeah, let's jump into it. All right, so like I said, this is Substance Painter. We start with the model. The model is now into Substance Painter. This is where we're going to start doing the work. So we have our 3D view. This is like our canvas. Like if you're a Photoshop user, think of this as like your canvas. But here in Painter, this is fully 3D. You can see it's actually lit. We've got this background that's actually lighting this here. Over on the far right, we have just our layer stack. So Substance Painter is a layer-based software. Some of our other tools actually use node-based. There's a lot of really kind of interesting workflows within the Substance ecosystem. But Painter, I would say, it's more like, Photoshop, basically. We like to call it kind of like the Photoshop for 3D painting. So we have our layer stack. Over here on our left, just to kind of get you acquainted really quick, we have what we call our asset library. So if I take a look here at the assets, we ship with tons of content. So you have like materials, we have filters and brushes, textures, procedural noises, all these different types of assets that you're going to use in your texturing process. Brushes, as you'll see, we'll get into some brushes and so on. So we ship with a lot of this content that you'll use, but then also as part of the Substance ecosystem, we have the Substance 3D assets, which is like a huge collection of materials as well as 3D models so you can download and work with other content as well. All right, so let's get into actually doing something. So let me come over here to my layer stack, and I want to just paint something really quick. So here in my layer stack, you can see I'm just going to create a new layer. I can name this if I want. But what I'm going to do is come over. So I have this little tab here, and one of the things you can do is create like a tab where you can filter and get like a nice collection of objects or assets, we'll say, that you want to use. So I've got things like material brushes, and you'll see how all this stuff works. But I'll just grab one of these material brushes now, and I'll come into here, and I can just start to paint. So you can see I'm just coming in and painting. And what's really great about this is you'll see that as I paint, I'm painting this full physically based material directly here in the 3D view right on the robot. So here, I'll paint a quick little stroke here. And what's really unique about this is we're painting across multiple channels at the same time. So for example, if I go and look at the channels, this here is the color information. What you sometimes refer to as diffuse reflected value or albedo. If we look here, this is going to be the height information. This is my roughness information, basically, how specular or reflective the surface is. And, again, I can kind of flip through these channels and check out different information. Here's some normal information, kind of like the bumpiness of the surface. Well, all these channels combine to create this material that you see here. So this is just one layer. And, you can see that I used a combination of a brush and a material, and that's how this works here. So we have our brush. If we take a look, then we have this material that's set up. So let's do another layer of painting, and this time I'll kind of more set this up a little bit differently. So let's say that, I want to splatter some paint. You can see that the art robot here, he's a good painter, but he's pretty messy. So let's jump over here to, I'm just going to come over here to my Assets tab and look at my brushes. And of course, you can't talk about painting without brushes. So one of the things we could do, let me select my brushes. And if I just do a search here for Photoshop, or just start to type in photo, you'll see that we actually ship with a ton of Photoshop brushes. So one of the cool things we can do is any of your ABR brushes, even fresco brushes, you can import those into here. So I'm going to do a search for photo, and we'll do Kyle. And you can see here that we have all these Kyle brushes. So there's a lot of really cool brushes in here that we can use. And I'm just going to try to find one really quick. I think this one's actually pretty cool. So this is a brush. So I'll left click to select the brush. And then what I want to do, you can see here in my properties panel, I have the brush. I can actually test it out. So I have a brush, but I need to associate a material with this. So I'm going to jump back over here to my filter tab, and I'm just going to grab the splatter material. And so what this is going to allow me to do is come in and just splatter some paint here right on the surface. So I'm using a combination of this kind of Photoshop brush along with this dynamic material that we ship here in Substance Painter. And so this here, you can see I'm going to go in and just splatter some paint across here. And so using a brush like this is how I was able to paint a lot of the splatter and things that you see on Artie the bot here. So we went in and just splattered some of this. If I don't like it, you can always change it. So I can grab like my eraser tool. I can come in and just kind of erase some of this out if I want to, but I'll just kind of keep it for now.
I feel like I need this rainbow splatter brush in my real life, just so you know. Like maybe we can talk to the engineers about how to reproduce that in the world. I would use it in my living room. I would do that.
Yeah. Well, you can always just grab a bucket and just start throwing.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very Jackson Pollock, So this is, so we got some paint here, right? Now, this is just default paint. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, and you'll notice here that, the front part of my robot, there's not a lot of detail here, right? So let's say typically in a 3D program, maybe I want some paneling in here. Well, I could go back to my 3D program and I could actually start to maybe model in some paneling. But since I'm here in Painter, I can actually paint this information. So one of the things that I'm going to do, actually, let me take a step back. Before I do that, I want to show you something else that's kind of cool. So let's say here that if we look at the robot, before we do the paneling, the edge of the robot's real clean. And maybe that's a style you want, but kind of like in Photoshop, when you're messing with filters to create different effects, you can do that here in Painter. So let's do this. Let me just jump back over here to my assets again, and I'm going to grab just a material, and let me do a search here for steel. And we have the steel stain material. So it's really easy to add a material. I can just take it, drag and drop it right on the robot, or I can just drop it right here into the layer stack. So you can see I can just drop it in. And as soon as I do that, you can see that we now render this nice metal material right here into my scene, which is cool. This is actually comprised of several layers, so it kind of works like a smart object in Photoshop, but you can save these. We call them smart materials. So now what I'd like to do is mask this because I want this metal to be kind of on the edges, kind of like, you know, some of the paint got chipped or scratched away to reveal some raw metal underneath of it. So a cool way to do that would be to just jump over here to, say, my masking effects. And let me do a search here for one called metal. So we have one in here called metal edgeware. I like this one a lot. So this is a masking effect. I can just left click and drag and drop and place this right here on the layer. And as soon as I do that, you can see that it is able to figure out the edges of the model and produce this nice, cool edgeware. And just like any kind of filter you would have in Photoshop, we can adjust those values. So here you can see I can come in and adjust some of these parameters, like the wear level. If I just adjust this, and you can see it's in real time as it works. Really, really cool. So maybe we could adjust the wear level. We could go in and increase that grunge amount, and you can just dial this effect up and down to kind of get what you want. Now, I kind of have this effect already dialed in, so let me just turn it on here. You can see that I didn't go too crazy with it, but it's just enough. So that's a quick way to kind of add like an effect, but also mask a layer. And you can see that we get some nice complexity here. Like I said, we've got this painted layer, and then we have this raw metal underneath, and we're using an effect to kind of scratch or tear away the surface so we can see that metal underneath of it. Now, let's get back to that panel that I was going to talk about. So I said we want to put a little panel here. So I have this little layer that I already have called details. Let me jump over here to my my demo tab, and I'm just going to grab this brush. This is called Event Brush. And this is actually made from just, again, assets that we ship in Substance Painter. So all this comes into Substance Painter. So I have this nice little shape here, and I'm just going to position it and just stamp this down right here right onto the front of the robot. So I'll come into here, and let me just stamp this guy down. And then just like that, you can see that I get this nice kind of paneling effect. So it looks 3D, you know, it actually has like depth and volume to it. And that again, and actually it's a trick. So if I look at it right from the side, oh, wow, it's just flat surface, you know? Now I could actually displace this geometry. I'm not going to do it in this demo, but we could. So it's almost like a sculpting application. So you could actually displace this geometry, which just means it's going to create additional geometry. We call that tessellation for this detail. But a lot of times we can get away with this kind of faked result here. It's kind of like something you'd see in, like, say, video games. But it still looks 3D. We get some nice beveling here. We get some shadowing. And also you can notice, and this is why I want to do that edgeware first, that metal edgeware kind of comes along for the ride here. So this also kind of speaks to this nature of Substance Painter. Like if I jump into this edgeware and I come back here and I play around with it, you'll notice, let me just come back here to this guy here. This is that non-destructive nature of Substance Painter. So notice that as I play around with that metal edgeware, it's still affecting this brush that I just stamped down, which is pretty cool. So we can add this panel into here. If I wanted to add just another one really quick, you can see I'll come in here, grab this little symmetry tool, and I'll just stamp in another detail. Again, you can see it really quick. That little metal edgeware comes along for the ride.
I think as somebody who I started in, you know, Photoshop doing digital painting as an illustrator, and like I love the metaphors of how Substance 3D Painter is the Photoshop of 3D. You know, you have your brushes, your layers, your masks, and of course you have this awesome 3D power underlying it. You know, normal maps and roughness and metallic, but those core concepts work so well together. It's so cool.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun too, because 3D covers so many different disciplines. You have, like, you know, like maybe you're modeling geometry, you're using painting, you're lighting, you're rendering, doing cinematography. It's like all of that cool stuff in one kind of package. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm just keeping an eye on the time here, Jeanette. Let me jump over and show one other thing here. So we have this effect here, this little rust effect. And so this is something very special we call a smart material. And really quick, if we look over here, you can see that we have these little smart materials. These are basically, it's a collection of a layer stack. Again, think of it like a smart object in Photoshop. So I have this collection. What's cool about this is I can create it, I can save it, and reuse it. So I'm gonna just take this. You can see all these layers are gonna make up this effect. So let me come over here and I'm going to grab just like a little brush and say I want to paint some rust in here. So now I have just a brush. I have my rust selected here, and I can just start to paint. And you can see that this is actually painting this really cool detail in here. Look at how it's bubbling up on the edges. We got dirt streaking down the front of the robot, and you're getting all of this effect just that's being powered by this single smart material like this, which is really cool. If I use a different brush, so I'm using a different brush, I can get kind of a different effect. So I can get this really cool 3D effect here. And like I said, this is a smart material, and I can reuse this effect. And again, think of it like a smart object in Photoshop. Lots of filters, lots of effects, all combined together in a single layer here that we can always tweak and change. Okay, so the next thing I want to do really quick before I pass this over to you, Jeanette, is got my face, the screen. Like I said, Artie, he's usually going to display what he's going to paint.
What is
So
he painting for us?
yeah, well, he's going to paint an apple. So if I'm going to enable his screen here, right?
He's on a
And
health mode.
yeah,
The
yeah.
pandemic. He's trying to eat healthy now.
Yeah, he's very health conscious robot. So if we take a look here, I've got this little graphic. Now this is actually something I grabbed from Adobe stock, brought it into Photoshop, tweaked it a little bit to get this kind of LCD look here, and then imported in the Photoshop file into Substance Painter. And so now I want to apply this 2D graphic into 3D space. So I'm just going to come over here to my material. I have base color and emissive. Emissive is like glow. So I'll just drag and drop this texture right here onto the base color in the emissive. And here we go. You can see I now have that graphic. I have this little manipulator so I can change. Maybe he's doing the red apple or the lime apple. It depends. What do you like, Jeanette? Red or?
I'm a red apple kind of girl mostly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the red looks a lot cooler. So there you can see I'm just applying this little apple here to his face. And so with that said, if I wanted to export this or get this out of Substance Painter, I could export it into different formats, get it into like a game engine or something. But in my case, I want to do a still rendering. I want to use super high quality rendering. So of course I want to use Adobe Substance Stager for that. So I could just do File, Send to, and we have an option, Send to Stager. It would open Stager and send it over. Now, Jeanette, this is where I'm just going to throw it over to you. And
Bring it
you're
on.
going to show us how to, what we could do in Stager.
Awesome. Yeah, let's take a look at Stager. So Wes, my master artist, has textured this bot and he used that export and he could have opened it. In this case, we're collaborating. So I just got that file and I saved it into Creative Cloud Library and just opened it up directly. And Stager, very similar in overall UI and appearance. And same as Painter, we're going to be working in a real-time 3D viewport. I can see all of that work that Wes did has come through and I have access to that little bot. And what is Stager? If Photoshop is the 3D, or sorry, Painter is the 3D Photoshop, then maybe I'm trying to think of what our metaphor is. Maybe Stager is the 3D InDesign. It's like layout, like you bring all your components together and you create a thing. So that's what Stager is. It's like a virtual photo studio. You're going to bring your components in and make beautiful images for it. And I think one of the most important things, whether you're doing packaging design, brand design, illustration, creative art robots, is adding context. So much of art is building a story. So I want to build a story for him. I want to have him on a table with his little painting. So the first thing I want to do is build a little room. So I'm just going to add a cube, to start. It's just a little cube. And over here, my properties panel, I'm going to make it into a floor. So let's make it about 3 centimeters tall. And I'm going to go about, let's do like 200 centimeters wide. Just give him a little floor to stand on. And then I'll just kind of move him up so that he's on that floor. Now I'm going to build some walls. I'm just going to hit Command D to duplicate that, hold down Shift and rotate this 90 degrees. And you'll notice that we have snapping on by default. So as I move this over, those walls just kind of start snapping into place. And I'm not doing anything too fancy here. I just want to build a little backdrop. During the keynote, we kind of had everything pre-baked, and I wanted to show you just how easy it was to start building a more complex completed scene. I can keep moving my camera, kind of looking at things from different angles, make sure everything's lining up. So boop, snapped into place. So now we have a little home for him. He can live inside this little space. And I want to add a little bit of beveling to these walls. I'm just going to hit the bevel. Let's set that to like 1 centimeter. And you just see like along the back now, there's like this little crevice where the wall and the floor kind of come together. So just like in Painter, you can actually apply materials inside of Stager too. So when you're building out walls or structures or importing, CAD models, you want to do like industrial design or package design, you can also apply materials in here. Now we don't have painting. That's when you can switch over to go into Substance Painter when you want to go deep. But when you want to just apply kind of general materials, there's a ton of things in Stager. So for this guy, I'm going to start with a little wood floor. I'll just drag and drop that. And for this material, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and maybe set the scale a little bit larger and kind of scale how big that wood material is. So maybe something like that. And then for the walls, I'm going to use a plaster. And that's a really ugly color. He's a very creative robot. I feel like me, he would want something really exceptionally bright. So we're going to go with like a really bright yellow wall. I feel like that's like more of his soul vibe. I don't know. Maybe something like that.
He's really into bright colors.
He's like colors, right?
Yeah,
okay, I thought so. We got to make sure
part
he's
of his
happy.
programming. Yeah.
He's programmed to only like bright colors.
Yeah.
And these are like powerful substance materials, which means I have a ton of control over how they're going to look. For him, maybe I could add some more damage onto this wall, maybe make it like peeled. Like again, like he's a creative boho. I feel like he's living in like like an art loft where he's like not super meticulous. You said he's kind of messy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll just tile that. Ooh, I tiled it too much. Tile 2 times, not 21 times. All right, so now we have this cool plaster. And I'm going to grab my sample tool and I'm just going to sample that material and then apply it onto the other wall. So now we have a little home for him. And I've been working in the real-time renderer. So both Painter and Stager have real-time rendering. So everything is buttery, lightning fast, and I can see everything really quickly while I'm working. But I can also use interactive and real-time ray tracing. So up here, I'm going to turn on ray tracing. And this is what's actually going to generate all the photorealistic lights and materials. It's going to give us nice soft shadows. We're going to start to see things a little differently. So this is what ray tracing does. It draws it in photorealistic quality for me. So now that I have that on, let's add in a little bit more context. And I can quickly add more objects to start building out this scene. So a couple of the artists provided us a couple of other things. So we have a piece of painted paper. So this was the little painting that he made. I'll just kind of slide that over. We have a little box for him. So he's like sold and he has a little packaging box that he comes in. We'll put that kind of over here and a couple of tubes of paint, so maybe some green paint. And you could just see like I'm like barely thinking about it. I'm just kind of dragging and dropping and organizing some stuff into the scene. As I start to think about more of the composition, I can fine tune anything I want, positioning it, scaling it, getting everything into position. And we said that he's kind of messy, so maybe I want to add a little bit of splatters as well. I'm just going to move this paper up just a tad, something like that. So we have this like splatter decal, and I can drag and drop any image or graphic onto any model. So I'm going to take this splattered paint and just plop right onto the paper. Give that a second to load. Since he was a bit messy, maybe he made some mistakes while he was painting too. And I'm able to position that graphic in real time on anything. So you can see how fast it was just kind of start building up the basics here. Now, as I start to kind of work on my scene, I like to start thinking about my camera, like how am I going to start, producing my final image? So I'm going to make a camera object. And for this, maybe I'll set it to like 1500 wide by 1000 tall. And now I can start to see the framing, the cropping, how is this going to start to look? I can start playing with the camera lenses. So maybe I want more of a like wide angle lens, something like this. It's going to make me feel like I'm really immersed in the scene. You notice that it kind of like brings everything a little closer. If I go the other way, I could go with more of an isometric effect where there's less perspective distortion. So tons of control over this camera. I'm going to go back in. I like this kind of zoomy view and just trying to start finding my happy place. This is one of my favorite parts about working in 3D is like this freedom, this non-destructive flexibility. Like you model it once and then you can take 1,000 images or videos of it from different angles. You don't have to model it again, but you can work non-destructively. If I need to go back to Painter, I can update this and just re-import him really quickly and put him in the same place. So easy to work like that.
Yeah, it's creativity in real time. That's so
Exactly.
great. Yeah.
So let's take a look at lighting. So I like this overall scene. It's a little bright. I maybe want a little bit more drama. I'm going to just hit my camera. I'm going to go back to my viewport camera. So I can actually work from a different view and swap back and forth between my working view and my rendered view. So I want to focus on my lighting. And for that, I'm just going to kind of focus on my viewport view real quick. So talking about lighting, when we come to the starter assets, there's a huge collection of lights that I can pick from. I just want something with a little bit more drama. So I'm going to go for kind of a darker look, and I don't really know what it's going to look like. I'm just going to drag and drop it and see. That's pretty cool. I don't know. I'm just going to try a couple out. What do you think, Wes?
Yeah, I think it's looking pretty sweet.
Maybe this one. Go a little bit more like side angle. I'm not sure. Then I'll kind of like rotate it sometimes, just kind of play with the lighting preset. Oh, that's kind of interesting with like hitting the wall and like casting the room into shadow. Maybe it's too much. So these lighting presets, really great for me to get like a quick start, and I have some really cool control over it. I can also add 3D light. So actually I'm kind of thinking maybe like a spotlight would be cool. So I'll just drag like a spotlight here into the scene. And you can see that this is actually an object. So I'll position it and kind of rotate it so it's pointing down at him. And then I'm going to bump up the exposure. I'm going to make it really bright at first so that I can really see what's going on, and maybe tone down the environment lighting just a little bit. And I'm just kind of playing here. I didn't come in with like a super strong idea of what I was doing. Like this is just my creative process. So just kind of playing around with it in real time. And just maybe tone that intensity. Maybe I'll make the angle a little bit brighter, maybe a little sharper. Not sure. But now I can jump back into my render camera and kind of look at how that's coming together in this view. Makes it really fast. And when I'm happy with this design, I'm just going to hop over to render mode. And here's where I can say, all right, give me my final render. And it's going to produce a photorealistic image for me. Depending on your hardware and your scene, can take a couple seconds to a couple of minutes. But here we go. We got Artie, our wonderful bot, in his little art studio apartment, making a mess, living a happy robot life.
Awesome, Jeanette. That's so great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been so much fun bringing Artie to life. I hope that he's living his dream. I hope we've represented it well.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is. And it's great that we can have like this collaborative workflow, you know, like we're painting, we're sending it to Stager, you can give it to the lighting and the rendering expert to take control. That's just awesome.
And I think one of the most exciting things for me, again, is that this is just the beginning. So we just launched the Substance 3D collection in June with 4 desktop applications, and then modelers coming in beta soon. We're not sure exactly when. It's in private beta right now, but we hope to have a public beta soon. So we've already got 5 desktop applications. We've got tons of content with Substance 3D assets, and there's so much more that we're really excited to share with you guys in the coming years, months, years. Both, future, I don't know, forever.
Awesome. Yeah. That's great. Thank you so much, Jeanette. Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the new updates coming.
All right, virtual high five, Wes.
Yes, there's my camera. I got it that time.
Thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed this.
Thanks, everybody.